Good day wherever you are, and welcome back after 3 years to Below the Curve Gaming. We are playing Warmachine Mrk IV, now brought to you by Steamforge Games. For those of you who haven't had a brush with one of our videos before, I'm Martin, and my younger brother Ben is the co-host and fellow gamer in this channel with occasional guest stars. We play casual games. We were doing Infinity, we're now doing Warmachine, hence the name Below the Curve. We're not on the curve, we're certainly not above the curve. We do go to tournaments and such, but normally we are doing what you would term kitchen table games. And so you will see generally maybe slightly less competitive lists. Occasionally you might see something a bit spicy. But we're generally the games you would play with your pals on, ironically as today is, a Sunday afternoon. The type of games that you maybe played on the holidays when you went back home and saw your friends who you hadn't seen for a while, those sort of games. Although this is us stepping into Warmachine Mrk IV with the intention to go to the Steamroller in August. So we will be playing some more competitive games and talking about our thoughts. On the channel, we predominantly do battle reports. This one is a lot longer than the other battle reports will be, but that's just because it's the first Warmachine one. We also do sort of deep dives into factions where we discuss tactics, model stats, ways of using things. Before we start, there's a few shout outs in this video. So obviously Warmachine Mrk IV, now by Steamforge Games. We are playing on the 4-foot map from Deep Cut Studios. Our terrain is 3D printed on a Bamboo Labs A1 printer, and it's by My Dungeon. You can find them on My Mini Factory. I pledged to their Forgotten Town 3, and this is the terrain from it. It has printed phenomenally, with pretty much no failures beyond a couple of setting issues. In fact, there have been no failures beyond our setting issues. And we felt that this terrain met the sort of 12 pieces of terrain recommended by Steamforge. The astute amongst you will notice there's only 10 pieces. However, the slightly larger pieces count as 2. So this and this would count as 2. And then we have these absolutely stunning sets of, as you can see, tokens. So these are like your fury, your spell effects, and we've got ones for each of the factions we're playing in this game. And they are by monstrousmakings.co.uk. Just flipped over off camera for you. So there's some MDF with, as you can hear, sort of a hard plastic cover. They come with a like sort of shrink wrap style thing that you can peel off. These ones here, I haven't peeled them off yet, which keep them sort of chip free in that when they're in transit. And they are just fantastic. So you can see there's a legend on the back of the Fury Focus and Effects when it tells you what they all are. And they're just brilliant. Being able to put something down, and you'll see them in the games to remind us, because otherwise you know how these go yourselves. You're playing a game, you forget, and then suddenly you're like, oh god, my guy had +2 defense and he wouldn't have died, or I should have been dealing extra damage, etc. So today's game is the Brineblood Marauders. They are Trollbloods against the Cygnar Storm Legion. So we have a Hordes faction, and we have a Warmachine faction, so you'll kind of see how both work. Now, I say Hordes and Warmachine like that means something. That's very much for people who played back in the day. In 4th edition, the game is Warmachine. There is no Hordes. So it's a War Beast and a War Jack faction, effectively. And I'm not going to go into all the lore and explain what those are. You're going to see them on the table. And without further ado, get ready to see Ben's Trollkin Brineblood Marauders as he talks through the list.
So this is a 50-point force that I'll be using for this game.
I'm using the Brineblood Marauders faction, and in particular I'll be using the Warlock Commodore Foulblood. So this army for this game is made up of 2 box sets. It's using the Southern Creel's Command Cadre Foulblood's Armada, which is a 30-point box, and it will be all the models in kind of sprayed white. Some of them I've started painting. And then there's some contents of a battle group box, which are the 2 trolls to the back. This is recommended as one of the best ways to start a 50-point force. The command cadres, much like some of the starter sets, the 2-player starter sets, gives you a 30-point force, which is a skirmish level game, and then it's recommended that you add the contents or the cohort models from one of the battle groups as a good way to start. So I wanted for the first game on the channel to kind of show that as an example for how you may wish to kind of gain entry into the game, as it were. There are other ways to produce a force, and you can pick up some of the other box sets and then make more kind of versatile forces out of the different selections, but thought this might be a good example. So to go through what I've got here, every force has to have a leader. In this case I've got Commodore Foulblood here, who is a Trollkin Warlock. He has speed 6, he's arcane attack 7, he's mat 7, he's defense 15, armor 16, he's arcane 6, so he'll gain 6 points of fury to start the game, and his control radius is 14 inches, which is quite big. Normally it's kind of roughly double your arcane, but his is slightly higher. He's got a 40mm base, which is obviously modelled on there. He has the special rule of tough, and he's got amphibious as his generic special rules. We don't actually have any water on this board at the moment. We do have a big lake in our collection, so that will come up in later games. He does have then unique special rules, which is Monkey Bite. So when he's in melee with this model, living enemy models suffer -2 to their melee attack rolls. He's got Open Bar, which is, whilst within 10 inches of him, friendly living faction models, which will be everything in my army, with a large or smaller base, which is also everything in my army, gain Stumbling Drunk. Now, Stumbling Drunk is kind of the key word, as it were, for this faction and what the majority of these models will have, and it's going to be key for my game plan. So Stumbling Drunk says this, and he's got it himself, this model cannot become knocked down if it's hit by an enemy attack at any time, except whilst it's advancing. After the attack is resolved, a model with Stumbling Drunk is pushed D3 directly away from the attacking model. So it's quite useful. It kind of gives control for what happens. There is ways that the enemy can exploit it, but not too bad a rule for them. And there is options I've got later on which can help me to exploit it. His weapon is called Siren Song, and that's this cutlass he's holding. It is mat 7, or melee attack 7. Range is 1 inch, and it's power 14. It's also got the special rule Magical, and it's got the unique special rule Bewitch. After this attack has been resolved, take control of target living enemy non-leader model hit by this attack. You can immediately make a full advance with the enemy model, followed by a basic attack, and then Bewitch expires. You can only affect a model with Bewitch once per turn. So you can hit something and then cause it to go and hit one of the enemy models with its own attack. Now, Martin's going to be using Cygnar, or in particular the Storm Legion. So their war beasts, or their cohort models are war jacks as opposed to war beasts. This would work quite nicely on a war beast because it's a living model. However, against a warjack, not as important. So I'm relying on it hitting something, a good solo or a particularly powerful melee unit, as it were.
because it's a basic attack. It could work on ranged attacks as well. His feat is friendly models within Foulblood's control range with Stumbling Drunk gain +3 armor and tough. Most of the Trollbloods will have tough, but it does give kind of tough to, I think, the beasts and that. We'll have a look at that in a wee second. +3 armor is good for that feat turn though. And when a model is pushed as a result of Stumbling Drunk, you can choose the direction it's pushed, and it lasts for 1 round. He's got 5 spells. Blur, which costs 2, range 6, does have upkeep, and you target a friendly faction model or unit to give them +3 defense against ranged and arcane attacks. He's got Fortify, which also costs 2, range 6, upkeep. Target model in the spellcaster's battle group gains +2 armor. And friendly models, and any friendly models in base to base cannot be knocked down, pushed, or be moved by a slam. So that's quite useful. Fortune also costs 2, also range 6, also an upkeep spell. Friendly faction model or unit can reroll missed attack rolls. Each attack can be rerolled only once as a result of Fortune. So it's really powerful. Fury's Strength. Target friendly faction model or unit gains +2 to its melee attack damage rolls. So it's only the damage rolls as opposed to attack and damage rolls. And Powder Keg, which is cost 3, range 8, AoE 3, power 14/8, and it's an offensive spell. It's his only offensive spell. On a critical hit, which is a double to hit, the model directly hit loses its initial attack and cannot make power attacks or special attacks for 1 round. So he's got quite a few tools. So we'll see how he does in the game. A lot of it will function around passing out Stumbling Drunk, and then hoping to kind of capitalise on that with the likes of his feat Rum and Grape Shot. So moving on to his battle group. He has 3 beasts within his battle group, which is Chum, a Dire Troll, and a Reef Troll. So we'll go through each of those. So Chum is a character, Dire Troll. He's a heavy war beast, so he's a 50 mil based. He's got Unstoppable, Power Attack Trample, Power Attack Slam, and Power Attack Headbutt, as well as Aquatic. He's got Foul Stench. This won't come up in this game. Whilst within 5 inches of this model, living enemy war beasts suffer -1 fury and threshold. So that won't be a impact at all. It's got Regeneration, which allows me to heal for D3 damage points once per activation, but I have to force him to do so, so generate a fury. He's got Reposition 2, so at the end of his activation, if he didn't run or charge, run or fail a charge, he can advance up to 2. Snacking, when he boxes a living model with a melee attack, he can choose to remove it from play, and if he does, he heals D3, or removes D3 damage points. And he's got Stumbling Drunk, which we looked at. He's got 3 melee attacks, so he's only melee attacks. So he's a bit of a kind of melee blender, however, relies on getting into combat. I should say his speed 5, his melee attack 7, defense 11, armor 19 with 4 fury, which means he can generate over a turn 4, a total of 4 fury. So only got a threshold of 5, so how fury works is you can spend it on your warlock and you can generate it on your war beasts, and then at the start of the next turn what you want to do is have none or very few on the warlock to then pull the spent fury, or the generated fury, on the war beasts onto the warlock to then spend that for the next turn. However, if you leave any fury on there, you roll a dice, and if you meet the threshold number, the beast goes wild or feral. So having a fury of 4 and a threshold of 5 isn't particularly useful. Or whilst the fury of 4 is useful, the threshold of 5 is a bit dangerous. So his free attacks, Great Maw, which is melee attack 7, range 1, power 16. He's got critical consume. If he, on a critical hit, if the attack hit a small based non-leader model, it's just removed from play. Grievous wounds on a direct hit, the target loses tough and cannot have damage removed for 1 round. He's got a Mind Flail, which is this weapon here, which is melee attack 7, range 2, power 18, and chain attack. Warhead is when this model directly hits an extra large based or smaller with an attack with this weapon, enemy models within 2 inches of the model hit suffer an unboostable power 10 damage roll. And it's not considered to be caused by an attack, so you can't kind of boost it like. Deep Viper, which is this kind of fish in his other hand, is melee attack 7, range 1, power 16, and any warrior model hit by the attack suffers -2 defense and cannot advance whilst within his melee range for 1 round. So you want to hit something with that first ideally, and then hit them with one of the other weapons, because that will reduce their defense. His Animus, which is a spell he can cast, or the Warlock can cast from him, is excessive healing, so whenever he gets hit, he can then heal D3 points back, so it can kind of tick up over the course of the turn. So that is Chum, he's got 32 health. The Deep-born Dire Troll, which is this troll here. Now, one thing to say with these is all of the arms on these are magnetized, so you can take them off and you can place them with different weapons. So depending what you pay the points for, depends on what rules you have for these models here. Same goes for the Reef Troll here. So it's same kind of abilities as Chum in terms of special rules. It does have a dual attack, which means it can shoot and make a melee attack when it charges, or when it makes its combat attack. It's got regeneration D3, same as Chum. Snacking, same as Chum. Fight or flight instinct, so that's from the head option. It can run or charge without being forced, and it's got steady, so it can't be knocked down. It's got bellow from its head, which allows it a ranged attack 5, spray 8, rate of fire 1, power 12, pistol attack, so it can be used when it's kind of engaged. It's got a crab net, which is this on the side here. Ranged attack 5, range 8, rate of fire 1, AoE 2, and then power 14/10. So 14, 10 from directly hit, 10 to up to 2 models within 2 inches for the AoE. And it's got Quake, which knocks stuff down on a direct hit. It's got Narwhal, or Narwhal, maybe, Spear Gauntlet, which is an open fist. We'll kind of talk about that if it comes up. +1 armour for this, and melee attack 6, range 1, power 16, and sustained attack during this model's activation. When it makes an attack with this weapon against the last model hit by this weapon, this activation, the attack automatically hits. So if you can force it to have extra attacks, if you do it with that weapon, then it can automatically hit if the first time it did hit as well. And then it's got Crab Crush, which I think is for its crab net. This has melee attack 6, range 1, power 14. It's got beat back, so after a basic attack is resolved, it can push the enemy an inch away, and then it can follow up as well, or advance up to 1 inch directly towards the enemy. It's also got chain attack with that as well. Its stats, I should have possibly gone over these first. Speed 5, melee attack 6, ranged attack 5, defense 12, armor 19, fury 4, and threshold 9. So that's standard, that 4 and 9. Chum obviously we saw was 4 and 5, so quite a difference. Only 30 health. But he's quite a bit cheaper than Chum at 13 points, as opposed to Chum who's 16. And then the final troll Warbeast we've got here is the Reef Troll. Now this is a light Warbeast. You'll see he's on a 40mm base rather than the 50. He's kind of hiding behind Sully, but that's him there. 22 health, so 8 less than the guy beside him. He's 40mm, he's only got power attack slam and power attack headbutt. He's got dual attack as well, and then aquatic. Speed 5, melee attack 7, ranged attack 5, defense 12, armor 16. He's only fury free, so he doesn't generate as much, and threshold 9. He's got lash for this model and friendly warrior models within base to base cannot become knocked down. Regeneration we've seen with the others. Sidestep, so when he hits an enemy model with an initial melee attack or a melee special attack, it can advance up to 2 after the attack is resolved. Duelist, which he gets for the cutlass, which gives him +2 defense against melee attacks. And he's got Cleave when he destroys one or more enemy models with a basic melee attack during its combat action. Immediately after the attack is resolved, this model can make 1 additional melee attack, and it can only gain 1 additional attack from Cleave each activation. His Cutlass is melee attack 7, ranged attack 1, melee attack 7, range 1, power 14, and the Boarding Axe, which is his second weapon, is his melee attack 7, range 1, power 12. He doesn't have an Animus, so no spell that he can do from there. So that is the kind of cohort models there. So on our battlefield, they'll be able to capture the 50mm objectives. We then have 2 solos from the starter box, which is Mr. Boggs, this fine gent with the shackle hat there. He has got 5 health. He is a pig, which is a smaller troll in Warmachine, so you'll see he's a wee bit smaller than them, and he's on a 30mm base. He's got Pathfinder, which allows him to move through some cover. Speed 6, so he's a wee bit faster. Ranged attack 7, defense 14, and armor 12, so a wee bit squishier. He's got Clear, which ranged attacks against friendly models automatically miss. So that's key because he's got a spray weapon, which could hit friendly models if their bases are overlapping the line to the target. He's got Iron Sentinel, so when he's in base to base with a friendly cohort model, so one of these Dire Trolls or the Reef Troll, he gains +2 armor and defense and cannot be knocked down. So that puts him to defense 16, which is pretty brutal, and armor 14. And he's got Monster Hunter. This won't come up in this game, but when he hits a Warbeast with an attack, the Warbeast suffers D3 +3 damage, and a branch of our choosing as well. Branches we'll get into with damage down the line. His gun is a deck sweeper, so he's ranged attack 7, range is spray 10, so it will hit everything in a line for 10 inches. Rate of fire is 1, and power is 14. He's got overwhelming recoil, so after he shoots it, you put a cloud effect on him, and then he's pushed D3 +1 inches away from the model targeted. So there's a big explosion. You put down a 3-inch blast, which is kind of line of sight, kind of smoke effectively, and then he gets pushed back. And Thunderbolt, so enemy models hit by it are pushed directly away from him, D3 inches, and on a critical they become knocked down as well. So it'll create a bit of separation between the two. No melee attack, so he can't fight in combat. So that's Mr. Boggs. Sully, which is the albatross with all the bombs in his mouth, is health 5. He's 40mm base. He has Unstoppable, which means he can move through, or he can move away from things and still take his combat action afterwards. Normally, if you move out of contact with something, you lose that combat action. He's got Flight, which allows him to fly over things, and he's got Advanced Deploy, which will allow him to deploy a wee bit further ahead of the rest. He's an Albatross, so when he's destroyed, enemy models suffer -1 to attack and damage rolls. Now there's no range for that, that's just all over the board. He's got an Annoyance, probably from high-pitched cries, Living enemy models within an inch of him suffer -1 to his attack rolls. Fiery Blast, when he's destroyed, models within 2 inches of him take a power 14 blast fire damage roll, and that's friend or foe. Flying High, so it makes it more difficult to hit him. So what happens is ranged attacks suffer a -3 range, and if he loses flight for any reason, he loses Flying High. But he can also, friendly models can advance through him if they've got enough movement to get past, because he doesn't block their movement. And he's got reposition 5, so allows him to move up to 5 inches after his activation in a turn where he didn't run or fail a charge. So the same we saw in Chum, but just further distance. Then he's got Bomb, which is range attack 5, range 6, rate of fire 1, AoE 2, power 12/8. It's also a pistol, and it's got sky drop, so it ignores cover, and anything hit that's a model that has flight ignores the kind of blast damage. So that is Sully. So pistol allows you to target a model it is in melee with, ignoring the target and melee bonus. So normally there's +4 to your defense against ranged attacks if you're in melee, and because this is a pistol, if it's him taking the shot, you ignore that. And the final unit I've got is the Lokabash Brothers, which are a character unit. All or most of these command cadres come with a character unit, some sort of solo, a character beast or warjack, depending on the range, and then a warlock or warcaster. So Lokabash Brothers are the Brineblood Marauders version. So Durgal, Connor, and Macabre. They are 10 health. They've got 40 mil bases. They have tough. They have assault as a special rule, which allows them to shoot on the way in of a charge, and they've got aquatic. Speed 6, melee attack 6, ranged attack 6, defense 13, and 14 armor. They've got Sanguine Bond, which is a bit weird. It means if they normally in Warmachine you target a single model to take the damage from a hit, this allows them to split that damage amongst the 3 of them, and you choose where the damage goes. So they still take the same amount of damage, but it allows you, if this one, say for instance, has more damage on him, you can instead spread it over to the other 2. And you can't over damage something. So if there's 10 health left on one and you do 12 points of damage, the max you can pass to that one is 10, for instance. Set defense, -2 on charge and slam power attack rolls against this model. So anything charging or slamming them, they are more difficult to hit. Unbreakable wall, if they're in base to base with 1 or more of them, so likes of there would be ideal. They get +3 armor for each other model in the unit that they're currently in base to base with. So for both of them it would be +6. In addition, when base to base with another model in this unit, model can't become knocked down and cannot be placed outside normal movement or moved by a push, slam, or throw, which is quite useful. The heavy rifles are ranged attack 6, range 12, rate of fire 1, and power 12. They've got snap fire, so when they destroy 1 or more enemy models with a ranged attack during its combat action, immediately after the attack is resolved, they can make another basic ranged attack with the weapon. Attacks with gain from snap fire cannot generate additional attacks. And then the final thing they've got is a bayonet, which is brutal charge. It's melee attack 6, range 2, and power 14. Brutal charge gives them +2 on attack damage rolls with this weapon. So that's everything in my faction that I'm using here. So as I say, it's 50 points we're playing in this game. This is contents of the command cadre, which is the ideal kind of starter. This was part of a 2-player starter originally, but I got it as a kind of standalone box. And then the contents of a battle group, which is the 2 the Reef Troll and the Deepborn Dire Troll at the back.
Okay folks, so here we have the Cygnar Storm Legion at 50 points. So I have led my force with Athena de Barrow. I had intended to base this off the, I believe it's called the Steamforge starter box. However, after playing with it, I really didn't enjoy using Adept Sparkhammer, the Warcaster. So I've gone for Athena de Barrow, who's the other sort of starter level caster. So this is Athena just here. So the important thing about Athena is that while she's only got 6 arcane, so that gives her 6 focus points to allocate to Jax cast spells, she does have a 14-inch control range, allowing her to cast and allocate focus to anybody within 14 inches of her, which is a 28-inch bubble. That's pretty significant. She's got an above average arcane attack of 7. You're rolling 2 dice adding your arcane, so she's pretty good when she's firing out spells. Very average 6 for her melee and her range. Very average defense of 14, so I'm going to have to try and keep her safe. Slightly above average armor of 17, and she's got 17 hit points, so she's very average across the board. She can take a hit, but you don't want to be taking more than a couple. She has a defensive formation rule, so if she's in base-to-base contact with battle group models, as long as they're not the Colossal, her and the other model will get +2 armor and can't be knocked down. And she has Resourceful. Now this is a very rarely seen rule, which means that she can upkeep spells and models in her battle group without spending focus. So it means as long as you get spells off earlier in the game, she's quite economical. She has a lightning spear for combat and a shield. The spear is very averagely powered. Well, actually, it's power 14, which on a non-warjack is actually pretty powerful. And it has the Electro Leap rule where lightning will arc onto targets close by, which is really good. And from the lightning generator on her back, she has Electrical Discharge, which is a range 8 gun. So again, quite average. Counts as a pistol, counts as electricity, and it can jump to D3 models. Already see she throws about a bit of electricity, which is very much what Storm Legion does. It bounces onto other models, which makes it really dangerous against groups of enemies. Now again, it's a very small force, like Ben's Trollkin, that should be allowing me to hopefully whittle them away and start knocking health off. Her feat is Call to Penitence. Cygnar have quite a strong theme of sort of religious crusaders, former religious crusaders, so there's a lot of sort of penitence and prayer sort of stuff. It allows me to reposition, which gives a 3-inch push at the end of your activation, as long as you've not ran or charged, or as long as you've not ran. And it lowers the opponent's speed and defense, lasts for a full round, so my turn and Ben's. So she has 4 spells. Firstly, Avenging Force, so this is cast on herself. It affects everything in her control range, which is really good. It's an upkeep spell, so we'll be firing that off early. It means that if any friendly model in range is damaged, then one of my models at the very start of the turn can make a 3-inch move and then a basic melee attack, so it can attack out of sequence. I have a couple of seriously heavy hitters in here. I have Banishing Ward, which allows me to sort of wipe spells off that Ben's cast onto a friendly model or unit, which is really good if he's got something that's maybe causing continuous damage or like lowering my armor overall. It's really quite good. Blinding Light is a range attack. It's not particularly powerful, but it's a 10-inch range. But the important thing is it stops things shooting and it lowers their defense. Really good against stuff like the chap Ben's with the big elephant gun, and good against the Lockabash brothers as well. And Hand of Morrow gives Blessed and Damage type Magical. Blessed is really good because it ignores buffs to defense. So Ben's been stacking a lot of buffs, and Trollkin do tend to do that. All the troll factions. Brinebloods tend to stack buffs, so this allows me to cut through them. She has 2 Warjacks in her battle group. She has Borealis, which is a named non-character Warjack, so you can take 2. This is Borealis here. And she has a Striker, which is the basic chassis heavy Warjack for Storm Legion, which comes with the range of weapons. Borealis is slightly above average armor for Cygnar Storm Legion. It moves 6, its melee attack is 6, its range attack is 5, its defense 12, that is my standard defense. Armor 19, it has an accumulator Stormforge Warriors, so as long as my troops are close by, it will generate a free focus at the start of the turn. A repulsor field that if you hit me, then you get bounced back an inch, which is really good. Skybreaker, which is its big gun. So Skybreaker is absolutely ludicrous. It's only range attack 5 and 1 shot. However, its range 12, which is really far in Warmachine. Power 14 counts as a pistol, which means it can be fired in combat. And this has the dual attack, which is really, really good. It has capacitor discharge, meaning that if you're hit, you then suffer further D3 automatic unboostable damage rolls, which is, I mean, it's maybe not going to cut through the heaviest armor because you can't boost it, but slapping another D3, and I should say, I missed saying, power 14 damage rolls. This will finish off someone's caster if you can get the hit on them. It will shred a light jack, and it'll probably knock the last few hits off something heavier. And they don't count as being caused by an attack, which allows them to circumvent quite a few defensive tricks. It also has energy siphon, so I can hoover fury or focus off one of the targets. This is notably better against war beasts and against warcasters than it is against warjacks, because war beasts will hoard fury because they build fury up. Warcasters will often hang on to it to try and mitigate damage. And because this happens on the hit, you can actually take it off before you roll damage. It's got Thunder Maul, which is a power 18 melee attack for a range of 2. That's very powerful. It has beat back, so it knocks you back an inch, and then it follows up. Electro Leap, so when it hits, it then bounces an electrical power 10 hit onto an enemy within 3 inches. And it has powerful attack, which means I spend 1 focus to boost both the attack and the damage. All in all, really good. The Striker, I have gone for the Voltaic Halberd and the Power Fist. It has the same stats as Borealis, but 1 less armor. Now, this is a common Warjack, so you can take 4 of it. It also has the Accumulator. It has the Relentless Charge head. You get the choice of different heads. I've actually put the wrong head on, but for this game, it doesn't matter. So when it advances as part of a charge against Pathfinder, the Halberd gives it set defense, so -2 on charge and slam power attack rolls against it. So Ben tries to charge me with a diet roll, it won't hit as likely. The Halberd itself also has powerful charge, which means that it gets +2 to the attack rolls. Very handy taking it up to melee of 8 on the charge, and it's power 17. And it has Electro Leap to fire another power 10 hit into something. The Power Fist is range 1 inch in melee, power 16, and it has beat back. So again, if it hits, it can follow up. It also has the Repulsor Blast built into the palm, which is a power 12 shot. Very average, it's a 10-inch range, it's rat of 5, but if it hits you, it's got beat back, so it knocks you back an inch, and then it gets to step forward. My solo is Specialist Tyson Vass. That's him here. So he's got 5 hit points. He's really quite an odd one. He's very fast. He moves 7. He's got a range attack of 7. And he has the Unstoppable rule, which allows him to run away from combat without sacrificing something, either his melee or his movement. That's really good. Like everything in the list, he has electrical resistance. He has a rule called Strafing Run, meaning he rolls an additional damage dice on his range attacks and discards the lowest one. If he's knocked down, he automatically stands up. And if he's hit by an area of effect, he's knocked down, but he takes no damage. And you ignore him when you're working out who would be caught. So a weapon area effect will have a number area effect 1, 2, 3, 4. That's how many other models it hits, and within however many inches of the target equal to that number. So if he is the only model beside somebody, he's ignored. If there are 3 models in its area effect 2, he can't be one of the ones hit, even if he's closer. He has a Tempest Capacitor, which is the sort of set of balls he's holding in his hand. And he can throw those over the head of things. They're power 12. And what you can do is, rather than just resolving hit the target, you can draw a straight line and everything under it is hit to the target. It's really quite good. And he has an ability called Electrocutioner, which means that anything hit suffers a cumulative -1 defense. I should also add, because he's got these 3 balls in his hand, he has 3 shots. So you can actually, if you can hit like a Diatroll, which has got a legendarily low defense, you can actually knock it down to defense of non-existent if you can hit it 3 times. You probably won't do any damage at power 12 against armor 19, 20, but you can lower something's defense to the fact that you basically can't miss it with the rest of your army. That's what he's there for. We then have the Weather Station. It's also solo, so that's his tower here with the 2 guys. And it has a force barrier, so it has +2 defense against range attacks. It's got resistance blast, which means it can't be caught by blasts. Really good. And if you hit it dead on, it takes a lower damage. And each time it fires, it chooses 1 of 3 attacks. The same Electrocutioner as Tyson. Sky Rumbler, where the model hitting anybody within 5 inches loses flight. In this game, that would only work in Sully, so I probably won't be using that. Or Thunderbolt, and this is always really good, knocks the target D3 inches back, and if it's a critical hit, so you roll a double to hit, knocks them over. And because it's basically just bringing lightning down from the sky, it ignores concealment, cover, elevation. I would say elevation is really bad against this. And stealth. You just get hit by lightning. Then we've got the Storm Callers, which are these 3 guys and girls here. Now these guys are 1 wound each, and there's only 3 of them. They have the same force barrier as Weather Station. They have reposition, so if it didn't run or fail a charge, so it's not if it did a charge, it's if it failed a charge, they can then advance at the end of the turn up to 3 inches. They have a Storm Vortex, so they too call down lightning bolts. And each other model that is hit before them from this unit gives a cumulative +1 bonus. So the first guy gets nothing, then the second guy gets +1, and then the third guy will get +2. It's an AoE of 2, and it's 11 power /6, so the people caught by the blast, the AoE, take the power 6. But the power multiplier applies to this as well, so the final person will be power 13/8. Storm Calls, so again it ignores concealment, etc. And in combat they have a lightning rod. It's not very good, they're melee 4. However, it does have Electro Leap, so if you can hit something with low defense, you can bounce the hits. Pretty good. Then we've got the Storm Veins, so that's these Ghostbuster types here with these sort of weird electrical guns, the hazmat suits. I'm really looking forward to painting them up, big backpacks. So they have the Galvanic Capacitor set, which is the backpack. And each of them gets to pick an ability, and you've got a choice of 3, and as long as all 3 are alive, you can't pick the same ability twice, so they basically will have all their powers. One of them gives a friendly model within 3 inches Electro Leap. Now, it's only model, not models, and I don't have anything really in this army that's going to benefit from it other than Borealis, and that just arcs a hit. One gives the Polarity Field Generator, so this unit can't be targeted by charges or slams made by a construct. Not very good against Ben, he doesn't have any constructs because that tends to be Warjacks or Circle Orboros, walled construct monsters, or Windweaver, which means that if you try and shoot them, you suffer -3 range, and whilst within 3 inches of the model with Windweaver, friendly models gain resistance blast. That's really good. And they've got Plasma Nimbus, so if you hit them, you take a power 10 hit back. And you can, Warjacks sometimes have that ability, but not today. They have a spray attack, so that's a 6-inch line drawn and anybody underneath it is hit, friend or foe. Power 10 counts as a pistol, so you can use it in combat. Not bad again. And lastly, I have Storm Thrower Legionnaires. That's these guys here. They are core infantry. They have a melee of 6 and a range of 5. However, annoyingly, they're armed with big guns. They have Assault, which means that when they charge, they can shoot on the way in, which is really good. Exactly the same as the Barrow, they have Electrical Discharge, 8-inch spray, counts as a pistol, power 12, and the gun's power 12 in combat, which isn't bad at all, with a 2-inch range. So what you can do is charge in, you stop 2 inches away, you've shot everybody in the way, and then you hit them with a fairly meaty hit. It just doesn't have the electrical ability in combat, which is a bit disappointing because the faction is very much based around electricity. So, the tactic is the Barrow in the centre, shielded by the 2 Warjacks. These chaps beside the Barrow, applying their buffs to stop the army being blasted. Now, Ben's Dire Troll has the mines on a flail, which are really dangerous, and there's always potential he's going to have a few blasts. The weather station advances just behind it, can move because it's got little legs, allows it to sort of scuttle. Devas, he can advance deploy, I believe, but more importantly, he's really, really fast. No, he doesn't advance deploy, ignore that. He's got a good range and he's fast, so you can sort of nip him to cover quite quickly. And the Storm Throwers will guard the flank that's not being guarded by the Storm Callers. So it's keeping everything quite tight. We have 2 objectives. One of them can only be held by the Warjacks, so I need to make sure I get that one. This weather station will probably go for the cache, and the Storm Throwers will head for the 40mm objective. So let's see how it plays out.
So this is the board setup. What we're going to be doing is playing the first mission from the casual play format, which is called Tales from the Frontline. It's a free PDF available from the app from Steamforge Games. And what we've got here is the setup for First Blood. We have 2 objectives, a 40mm objective signified by the blank 40mm base just here. Now, it's only claimable by leader models and by units. Now, to claim it, you have to have a unit or leader model within 3 inches of it and no opponent model contesting. Any model can contest. There is also a 50mm objective, just here. Also a 50mm blank base. And this can only be claimed by leader models or by cohort models. So in this case, a Warlock for me and War Beasts. For Martin, it would be his Warcaster and Warjacks that could claim it. Now, we'd score 1 victory point at the end of each turn, starting on the defender's second turn. And if you've got 3 clear victory points, you win the game. We also have 2 caches. This is my cache here, and Martin's cache over there. And these are 30mm bases. They are signified here by the airdrop models from the Gravedigger faction. And to claim a cache, you need to have a model give up its combat action within 3 inches of a cache. Now, you can only claim your opponent's cache, and when you do so, you score 2 victory points. So we'll be trying to defend our caches whilst claiming the opposing cache. In terms of the other rules that we'll be using, now it's recommended in 50 points and below to use the execution mode, but we will be playing the normal assassination mode, which if any model kills the opponent's leader, then the game ends for victory for the person who killed them. So in my case it would be my Warlock, and in Martin's case it's his Warcaster. There are some variant rules for our first game though on the channel. We're not going to be using any of the variant rules. So to go over my deployment, so I'm the attacker in this scenario. I've got a 6-inch deployment, and I've got the Lochabash brothers on the left side of my flank, as it were. I have the Reef Troll here. Now the Reef Troll, just to add to my intro for the army, it does have an animus, but for some reason it doesn't show in the app. It's part of its head ability, and it gives sprint. So we'll talk through that at some point in the future. We've got Commodore Foulblood himself. Then we've got Chum. We've got the Deepborn Dire Troll, and then we've got Mr. Boggs. And then an advanced deployment, which is an additional 3 inches, we've got Sully up on the left flank there. So that will be the Brineblood Marauder deployment. So I deployed first, then Martin deploys his main faction, then I deploy my advanced deployments, and then if he had any advanced deploys, he would deploy his.
So this is the Storm Legion deployment, and it is pretty much as I said when I was talking through the list. So we have Debarrow in the centre, as we can see here. She has Borealis and the Striker, so guarding her. Now, you have to be careful with this, because if Ben was able to slam them backwards, they would go pinwheeling into Debarrow, which is a fairly terminal experience, as you can imagine, when 4.5 tons of wrought steel lands on your squidgy Warcaster. We have the weather station here, so it can apply its buffs across. And we have Tyson Vass just here at the side. Originally he was between the Warjacks, but I think he was actually too far forward. We have the Stormcallers in the woods. Now this will slow them down. They don't have Pathfinder, but I didn't want them too far out in a flank. The Storm Veins are just here, and I didn't want them any further away from the force than they were. And then we have the Storm Throwers here, so that they can contest the 40 mil objective, because when you're trying to hold it, you want something that's got a bit of numbers. At a previous game we played, I tried to do it for 3-man unit, and it was absolutely unsuccessful. They didn't even get near the objective. So a range unit is usually good because it means they're not being removed from the game, and they've got the numbers as well. So we will be back at the end of Ben's turn 1 to see how things have progressed.
So it's the end of the Brineblood Marauders turn 1, and we've done a lot of running and we've cast some spells, but that's about it. So on the left flank here, Sully has moved up, hasn't ran, hasn't repositioned, just kind of biding his time. The Lochabash brothers have moved up. Now they've also moved into base to base to gain +6 armour for each of them and can't be knocked down. Commodore Foulblood, just hidden here, has used all of his fury. Now he's cast 3 upkeep spells. We've got Fortune on the Deepborn Dire Troll here, which allows it to re-roll its attacks, I believe. We've got, now this one, unfortunately, the token is blank, but it's Fortify is the spell that is cast, which will increase the armour of the Reef Troll by 3, and will mean that it and models in base to base, which is currently Foulblood, can't be moved, pushed, slammed and knocked down, I believe. And he's cast Blur on Chum, which gives it +3 defense against ranged and magic attacks or arcane attacks. I have then moved, so he ran up after casting his spells. I have then ran up the Reef Troll into base contact, and it's riled once to create a Fury, so he can then take that off them next turn. Chum ran up over here to hopefully pressurise that 50mm base objective. Mr. Boggs ran up there with him. And then we've got the Deep-born Dire Troll has ran up to the centre. He's kind of moved over from around here. Each of them has riled once as well as running to create hopefully 6 fury that I can pass on to Foulblood at the start of next turn. So that's the end of the Brineblood Marauders turn 1.
So it's the end of the Storm Legion turn 1. Really, this should be the Storm Force or Stormforge turn 1, as I have discovered when I went to activate my accumulator, because with the exception of the Barrow, the Striker and the Storm Throwers, the rest of the army is Stormforge, which affects what the Striker can generate its focus based off. So the Striker generated 1 focus for being a Warjack and a further 1 for being within 3 inches of the Storm Throwers. It's now out with 3, which could be detrimental next turn. Borealis generated 1 for being within 3 inches of Stormforge models and 1 for being a Warjack. And so DeBarrow was able to hang on to all 6 for herself. So we can see the army by and large just moved up. The Storm Throwers moved, making sure they stayed out with 11 inches of the Lochabash brothers to avoid the assault charge, which would allow the Lochabash brothers to charge, shoot them in the face, and then collide with them in combat. This is a fatal experience because Lochabash brothers are about armor 21. Tyson Vass moved all the way, as we can see, over here. The Weather Vanes moved up and they activated their 3 abilities, as we can see by these blank chips. I don't have the Stormforge pack of tokens. I only have Storm Legion, so I'll have to pick that up. So whilst they have Electro Leap from the guy on the furthest left, that's a bit irrelevant. The chap in the centre means they can't be charged by constructs. That's also irrelevant because there's no constructs. Electro Leap's irrelevant because they're out of range. But the guy in the furthest right protects everybody, giving them immunity to blasts. And if Ben tries to shoot them, he suffers -3 range. This is important. It's a debuff rather than giving me plus to my defense. The Barrow cast 3 spells because she can upkeep them on models in her battle group. So she has Avenging Force. As I said earlier, if any of my warriors die, it'll allow another model in the maintenance phase to move and attack, albeit a very small move. Banishing Ward has been preemptively cast in the Striker, meaning that Ben can't cast on it. I had a torrid time last time we played where he effectively locked it down. And Hand of Morrow on Borealis gives it Blessed, meaning that it ignores defense buffs from spells and Animus, which is very important with the Reef Troll, which Ben had obviously fortified. So that is the end of my first turn. We will start scoring at the end of my second turn, so the pieces are kind of in play. Now time to see what happens.
So it's the end of the Brineblood Marauders turn 2, and we've moved a lot of things up to get into position to contest or to score. In previous games I'd made a bit of a mistake when attacking, when often I would fail to consider moving stuff up into objective range. So I've not made that mistake here. So I started by moving the Lochabash brothers up. So they moved up to contest this objective, or perhaps score it if nothing else moves into range. They took ranged shots against the Storm Throwers. They got quite lucky with the first shot and got the Snapfire off to kill 2 of the models, and then between final 2 Lochabash brothers, they managed to drop 1 more. And then Sully flew up as well and managed to drop some bombs on the final 2 Storm Throwers. through its AoE. So between the two units, or the unit and the solo, I was able to take out that unit that would be causing potential danger to that side of my flank. So they are currently holding the objective there. They're all within 3 inches of it. Then we had Mr. Boggs move up, and he took a shot at the striker. He managed to roll really high and got double 6 on his damage, doing 8 points of damage, which was pretty effective. He then pushed it back 2 inches and pushed himself back 3 inches and dropped this cloud template, which currently Chum has moved up and into. I kept all 3 upkeep spells in my maintenance phase. So I've got Fortune on the Deepborn Dire Troll, which is the reroll any attack rolls. I have Fortify on the Reef Troll, which is the +2 armor and ignoring pushed, etc. And then I've got Blur, which is the +3 defense on Chum. So he's kept Blur up there, and he has also used his Animus for excessive healing, and that's generated 1 Fury. The Reefborn moved up. It couldn't actually have range to charge or do anything, so it's just riled itself twice to generate a few Fury, and the Deepborn Dire Troll has moved up, and now it can actually charge or run without needing to be forced. So it currently has 3 Fury there from being riled, but also was out of range of anything. Foulblood himself moved up. He cast, out of sync it has to be said, Fury Strength on the Lokabash brothers, just to clear down some of his fury so he could then take it back off or leech it off the war beasts. So it should be, 1, 2 and 3 fury across the war beasts. And then he also used excessive healing from Chum's Animus on himself, just to, yet again, generate some fury so he could, or spend some fury so he could then leech it back. So that is the end of my turn, and we'll see what Martin does.
So it's the end of the Storm Legion's second turn. Now, obviously, the death of the Stormthrowers was incredibly inconvenient, and I really should have remembered this from the last time I played the Lokabash brothers, because I think the same thing happened then. So, first we went with Athena de Barrow, and we activated our feat, having upkept all the spells for nothing. She is my only surviving Storm Legion, so she was powering up the striker. Borealis obviously had lots of Storm Forge around him, so that was powering him up. They're both out of position a wee bit, but we'll come back to that. She moved forward, activated defeat to lower all Ben's speed and defense by 2. Watch us now forget the speed. And she tried to hose the Lokabash brothers. She rolled really well, and Ben revealed the Sanguine Bond ability, which allows you to transfer the damage between them all. Incredibly inconvenient. So she then repositioned back, fearing retribution, as you can well imagine. The Weather Tower moved up, and it shot the Lokabash brothers as well. It dealt absolutely no damage, but it used the grounding ability to stop Sully flying, because I didn't enjoy being bombed once. I certainly was not going to be bombed a second time. The striker charged the Deepborn Dire Troll and rolled maximum damage, showing Ben that 2 can play that game. It whacked the beast's body and mind out in, I believe, 2 hits. I managed to cause 5 damage from the electrical discharge on Foulblood. It then repositioned 3 inches back. It has set defense in the halberd to protect it from being charged. So I was feeling that was quite a clever play. Borealis moved round to about here and opened up with the Storm Capacitor Cannon that it has. And it managed to drive Chum back, and it was a monster hit, knocking Chum's spirit out. Chum didn't manage to heal enough back, and the D3 extra shots managed to take a couple of more hits off, and he can't heal them because again they don't count as an attack. Tyson Vass moved up, and poor Mr. Boggs found himself just in range, chewed an electrical ball to the skull. That was the end of the unfortunate Mr. Boggs. I was going to shoot Chum until we realised that in all likelihood, even if I did damage, because Ben can choose with excessive healing where the healing goes, he would be able to bring Chum's spirit back online. Currently, Chum can't be forced, much reducing his damage output, so I wasn't too keen for that. I also moved the weather vanes up and sprayed the Reef Troll. The spray caught my own striker, but because of its electrical resistance, it actually couldn't take damage from it because I couldn't roll high enough to damage it. And I got very lucky and dealt 4 damage to the Reef Troll. It would have been driven back from Stumbling Drunk, but because of fortitude, it was unable to be moved, which was quite a clever play by Ben. The only thing of note is that Stumbling Drunk has driven Chum back, and I'm hoping, but not too convinced, that he's now out with range from that large base and thus can't score. So we're just going to total up the victory points quickly, and then we'll let you know how it stands at the end of turn 2. Tragically, Chum is within about 2 millimeters of the objective and thus contesting, or Borealis is contesting it from Chum, who knows? And the Lockabash brothers and Sully are holding the 40 mil objective. Neither of us holds the opponent's cash, so it currently sits Brinebloods 1, Storm Legion 0.
So, it's the end of the Brineblood Marauders turn 3, and it is currently now 2-0 to the Marauders. I have scored this objective again with the Lockabash brothers, and this one here is currently contested. Neither cash has been scored. So I started by hoovering up the Fury with Commodore Foulblood. Unfortunately, due to Martin using the energy siphon on the Fury I'd left on Chum, I ended up with only 5. So I decided to keep Fortune and Fortify upkept on the Deep-Born Dire Troll and the Reef Troll, but I let Blur disappear from Chum. So it left me with 3 Fury to then use for the rest of my turn. The Lockabash brothers moved up and they shot at the Storm Callers. These two here, they only managed to kill 1 of them. They only moved up 4 due to the -2 to the speed, which has been quite effective for the force. It's pushed me to slower movements and really hampered my ability to kind of get in towards the cache, it has to be said. Sully moved up over here, but didn't actually do anything. It was out of range to shoot. It also can't score this objective because it's not a unit or a leader, so I've just moved that up to hopefully threaten the cache. Over here then, I then moved Chum. Now, I had hoped that I would maybe be able to charge the Stormcaller here with Chum. Because it's a living model, that would allow me, if I killed it, which hopefully with all his melee attacks, I would then activate snacking to then heal off the spirit. However, due to the feat, my movement was reduced to 3, which even with a 2-inch melee, I was going to be out of range. He's unstoppable, so I could have moved out of combat with the, or melee range with the Borealis, and still then been able to attack, but Martin's feat yet again proving to be quite beneficial from his behalf, not so from mine. So Chum moved up and did a bit of damage, not too much, to Borealis. I couldn't force him at all, so it was a wee bit limited what I could do. I was pushed back by the Polaris shield, but I was able to then reposition in. So I only got 2 out of the 3 attacks off as well. Then this potentially I did out of sequence. I'm not sure. I was contemplating putting the spell Fury Strength, but then I realised it's only warrior models, so it wasn't too bad, but I could have maybe activated Commodore Foulblood first to do some effects and then move the Reef Troll and the Dire Troll, but instead I charged the Reef Troll in, which did quite a bit of damage with its cutlass and its axe on the striker. Deep-born Dire Troll also, it first healed itself because it had both crippled mind and body. It can be forced, thankfully, because its spirit was still intact. It could be forced to heal, and I managed to hit a 5, I think it was, on the D3, which allowed me to take points off both mind and body, which meant that I could then charge at full effectiveness. If I hadn't have managed one of those, I think it's 1 dice for attack and 1 dice for damage for them, and it would have just completely neutered its ability to do anything. So it put a lot of damage on it and was able to kill it eventually. Commodore Foulblood moved up. He cast Blur on himself. He really hasn't had much impact on the game so far, other than passing out these spells. Ideally, I want to try and get something, a living model killed with it or attacked with his Siren's Call to boost that power, but unfortunately there wasn't anything close enough, and due to the fact that yet again he was under the Barrow's feet, it meant he had a movement of 4, potential charge of 7, but starting behind the 2 trolls meant he was a wee bit curtailed. So that is the end of the Brineblood Marauders turn 3. Currently 2-0 to myself. If we can hold that objective over here, then I can potentially steal it with a 3-0 victory. We'll see how it goes.
So this is the end of the Storm Legion turn 3, and I suspect, for reasons we come to in a moment, this will be my final turn. We still did quite a bit though. We attempted a bit of an assassination of a Lochabash brother with the Storm Collars, which was maybe a bit of a fool's errand, but we missed one of the shots, meaning we didn't get the accumulator. We still slapped a few wounds through them and it sort of spread it out, and I think they're all on 1 or 2 wounds now thanks to Sanguine Bond. So we used reposition to push ourselves up to at least contest. Tyson Vass used the Strafing Run ability and threw his orbs at Foulblood. However, he hit Foulblood in the second shot, and Foulblood, stumbling drunk, ran 3 inches away, leaving him out of range of the final shot, which was heartbreaking. However, scandalously, the Strafing Run managed to put a point of damage onto Chum, which meant that Borealis eventually managed to finish Chum off. Borealis started further back and used Beat Back to drive Chum back, and then finished him with the mace. The Weather Vanes moved up, and because the way the game works, where you pick up a model and reposition the 2 beside it, they managed to squeeze a chap round here. They opened fire with their Weather Vanes, whoop, 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 and missed spectacularly when it really mattered, but eventually drove the Reef Troll back into melee with Borealis, which was my cunning plan, to get it away from my Warcaster. Unfortunately, Borealis's dice rollings just wasn't quite good enough to drop Chum when he needed to, and so my hopes of assassinating the Reef Troll were met with miserable failure. As Ben pointed out, I should have used the lightning discharger to shoot the Reef Troll instead of Chum, but never mind. Athena de Barrow charged the Dire Troll and managed to kill it with some very lucky dice rolling. Didn't do any damage to Foulblood with the lightning discharge, but she's still got 1 focus left, which will give her 5 points of damage reduction. I would say it will come in clutch. However, despite killing Sully with the Weather Vane, the two Stormcallers are incredibly squishy. The Lockabashes are going to bayonet them to death, meaning that Ben will score his third victory point. I don't imagine he'll be able to shift Borealis, but I have no way of killing Ben's Reef Troll in my turn. So when he kills me, that will give him the 3 victory points to mine 0. And if you're ever 3 points ahead of your opponent, Warmachine, you win the game automatically. So it'll have been very hard fought, but I suspect this is maybe the last turn for the Storm Legion. Let's see if Ben manages to kill the Stormcallers in his turn. I think we can all agree we're hoping for some abysmal dice rolling.
So here we are at the end of the Brineblood Marauders turn 4, and consequently, as expected, the end of the game. So we firstly, because of the death of the Deepborn Dire Troll in the previous round, I could only take 2 out of the 3 Fury off the Reef Troll, leaving it with 1 Fury left because I had 4 sitting on Foul Blood. This meant I had to take a threshold check, which is 2d6 plus the number of Fury currently sitting on it, which at that case was 1. But I didn't hit my threshold level of 9. I came 1 off, so it didn't go wild. So that was a boost from my point of view. So I started by using the Lokabash brothers to take out the final Stormcallers. So I managed just to kill the 2 of them. I missed with the first attack with the bayonet, but the other 2 managed to dispatch them, which was just as well because that then meant that at the end of the turn I would score my 3rd victory point for the 40mm objective, and that should win me the game. We played out the rest of the turn anyway, and just in case anything happened. So I went to the Reef Troll, which I forced to regenerate because it had a crippled body. I wanted to remove the negative, which reduces the amount of damage dice you roll by 1. So for this I healed only 1 point, unfortunately, with my regeneration, but that was still enough. So I attacked with a cutlass and missed. I then attacked with its boarding axe and I hit, so I only had 1 Fury left at this point that I could kind of force it to do anything. So I chose to boost the damage, but rolled abysmally low, so it did nothing to Borealis. So stacked up with 6 Fury, Commodore Foulblood decided he would do something in this game and charged into the barrel. He managed to firstly hit. I boosted the attack with the first attack to hit and dealt a bit of damage, 6 damage in the first attack. I then bought a second attack for his second Fury, boosting to the hit again and boosting the damage, which I did a full 10 damage, which was pretty impressive.
At this point, it's worth noting I used my focus to reduce one of the hits by 5 in a vain attempt to keep the barrel on the table.
So after dealing 10 damage, I had 2 Fury left, so I bought 1 final attack, and I had the choice between boosting the to hit or boosting the to damage, and I decided I would trust in my ability with my melee of attack of 7 to be able to hit. So I managed, thankfully, to roll a 9, which was enough to hit, and so boosted the damage, which took out the barrel. So I would have won on scenario, but because I had assassinated the caster, I win on an assassination victory. I think it was a wee bit of a gamble by Martin in terms of his placement at the barrel, and we did kind of feel that due to the kind of weather station not being close enough to contest that objective, that the Stormcallers were probably not going to survive the Lokabash brothers, so it was maybe a wee bit of a moot point. So just to go over my final thoughts, I felt the Brineblood Marauders is a good starting box, I think. I like the Lokabash brothers, they're very forgiving for new players. The Sanguine Bond allows you to really maximise 30 hit points across the 3 models. And the fact they've got tough means there's a chance that they can absorb more than that as well. Foulblood, they've changed his spells, is my understanding, from what he was originally. So there is a few, actually, it's a wee bit disappointing on my tokens. There's a few spells I don't seem to have tokens for. But I think that's due to the change. And I did buy them after the change, but they've maybe tweaked them again. He is really good in melee. However, he's not got that much movement abilities. If he pops his feet, I didn't actually do his feet in this game. He pops his feet and he takes kind of incidental damage. He can move quite a bit because he gets to move in any direction, the D3 for the Stumbling Drunk. But in this game it was a wee bit limited in terms of my placement of where he was and the two trolls that were in front of him. It did keep him quite protected though, so he did take a bit of damage, but not that much. His upkeep spells are pretty powerful, certainly. The Blur in the early game to remove ranged and magic attacks is good later in the turns, but you tend to find, or certainly I find, that there's not as much shooting for some armies as things get kind of more into the melee ranges. Fortify was pretty good as well for the +2 armor. The inability to be pushed and kind of knocked down and that, there's a lot in this faction, or certainly in the list I had today, that kind of overlaps that as well. So maybe not as impactful. However, it did stop Stumbling Drunk and that affecting the Reef Troll. The Deepborn Dire Troll didn't really get to shine in this game. I've had more out of it in the last games we've played off camera. The challenge with it is I was trying to fit both it and the Reef Troll into the list, and it does limit the choices you can make in terms of some of the head options do cost. I think the reposition one I feel is probably a wee bit better than the one I had, and the spined back, I think it is, that allows you to the retaliation strike is probably better than the minnow back that I had on them at the moment. So a few kind of tweaks if you were playing a different list. As I said at the kind of start, I wanted to use their suggested starter force as it's a kind of early game for the channel, as it were, to show what they recommend of a command cadre plus a battle group. So trying to get everything in was a wee bit tight on the points, but that is the challenge with 50-point games, and it's part of the intention of it for the casual play, I think, is it really challenges you to choose what you're going to pick. You're not going to have the most rounded force in some ways. You might have to make some sacrifices in some places. Mr. Boggs, I like. Certainly I felt he was a lot better in this game than he had been in previous games. I hadn't really got that much use out of him in previous games because he tended to be targeted, probably due to his impressive hat. However, the one thing we did notice, the cloud effect he drops, which you can see is still denoted by this template here, it doesn't specify a duration on it, so I'm going to have a look online and see if I can find a kind of somebody's thoughts on when that duration ends, as it were, or does the cloud, as we've got here, just stay there for the whole game. It was pretty impactful in pushing the Borealis, I think it was, back at the time. And I could see the idea I had was I could keep shooting at it and pushing it out of range of the objective, which would have been quite good. Now, it's not as good as a slam because it doesn't clear out anything behind the target, as it were, but not too bad. Sully didn't really have that much impact on this game. The Albatross was about the last shot that Martin made. It technically, because it's a board wide, it can be quite impactful, but yeah, it didn't do too much in this. Other than that, I think that Chum being the final model in the list, I think because he lost his spirit really early, it limited what he could do. I think it is one of the things with the War Beasts. It's the same with the Warjack. If it loses Cortex early on, that it suddenly puts a bit of a stumbling block on what you can do. Now, Chum isn't completely useless if it happens. There is ways. He does have so many healing effects. There are ways that he can get that back. As I'd said in the previous kind of clip, that I was intending to try and get him into a living model, to snacking on it to heal that spirit back. But you're then trying to make adjustments for it, which is part of the point, as it were. All in all, quite successful. I think I concentrated on the mission quite a bit, although did still get to do quite a bit of damage as well. So that's my thoughts, certainly. I will pass it over to Martin for his thoughts.
Disaster. Straight to eBay. Army going up. You can buy it for £30 or best offer. Not true. We are sticking with the army. But I have a few thoughts, and there's a few things. Firstly, the Storm Legion is a little bit inconvenienced by the fact it doesn't have one of those beautiful shiny boxes that comes with a caster, 1 to 2 Warjacks, a solo and a character unit of 3 guys with names and fancy equipment and really good, absolutely pushed over the top abilities. Not looking at anybody in particular as we zoom into the Lochabash brothers. They are still very good. However, the mistake I made was that I took a bunch of Stormforge guys and I didn't notice they weren't Storm Legion, which then inconvenienced the generation of focus on Striker because it caused me to have to place him in suboptimal positions. This can be easily remedied, but for what we were trying to do, where we're using like the starter box and adding something to it, it wasn't particularly great. And I would have had the same issue. In fact, it would have been worse if I had ran the list with Sparkhammer. Long may he not see one of my gaming tables, because he is also Stormforge, and so I wouldn't have been able to ever power up Striker. Thoughts so in general, Borealis was an absolute beast. Borealis is one of the not character Warjacks when you can take 2 of them, but they come with no options. And I think those are quite forgiving when you're starting playing. You're not being overwhelmed by, should I take the Plasma Nimbus head or the reposition head? Do I want to go for the Galvanic Shield or the Power Fist? And the spear, or the javelin and the halberd, those sort of decisions can be a bit too much in your first few games. So Borealis, I would strongly recommend. The weather station is good. The little weather vane guys, I absolutely love. I mean, they're maybe not the most impactful, but they're these sort of utility pieces that just provide those buffs for not too many points. Tyson Vass, last time we used Tyson, he got one-shotted, I believe, by Mr. Boggs. This game, the boot was on the other foot, and I actually thought Tyson was really good because I had a better grasp of what he did. The Stormcallers had the most horrendous dice rolling I've ever seen. For a unit that, as long as the first one hits, they're phenomenal. The first one and every shot they took was like, absolutely not. The Stormthrowers we never got to see in action. I know the Stormthrowers are good. However, they got unlucky. I didn't twig Sully's bombs. And I mean, he's got about 19 of them on his base. I didn't realise how far he could go and how far he could hook them out at me. So that was entirely on me. DeBarrow is, as I said, very basic. Her abilities are good because she's got 3 upkeep spells, and they were good. I don't know if maybe against Foul Bloods how good the Blinding Light was, Banishing Ward, was, but just having your Ward Jack not be able to be touched by enemy spells is fantastic. Lowering the opponent's defense is everything you want in a feat. Effectively board wide with her control range. And yes, I maybe overextended with her at the end, but the game was up. We knew this, and I just kind of wanted to make sure I removed some pieces from the board and made it look maybe closer than it was. It was a garbage time touchdown of plays, that was. So there are tweaks I would make, and I think it's kind of those, if you're running Stormforge and you're taking Borealis, you kind of have to really lean into Stormforge and accept you've got a very limited roster. And if you're going Storm Legion, you kind of have to leave Borealis behind, because that extra focus generation is so important for a Warjack. Being able to generate 2 without having to dip into your caster's supply is the difference between life and death potentially for casters, and the difference between your caster doing what you want them to do and what and not being able to do what they want to do. And it also allows your casters to run more, maybe even 4 jacks, because if each jack is generating 2 focus of itself, you then are handing out 1 focus to each of them, and maybe not always, because some jacks don't even need 3 focus, which really allows you to get your game up and running. So all in all, I was really chuffed with how it looked on the table, and it played well enough. I got to do cool things, and that is always the mark of, did your list work? Did you get to do cool things? And could you see what it was trying to do? And yes, I think it did. I was maybe let down by some poor dice rolls on my behalf, and being outplayed on the left flank, very well outplayed, it must be said, by Ben's Loch of Ash brothers and Sully. And so Ben took the deserved win.